Hello everyone. All of this is the recorded class for Visual Merchandising Development Plan. And this time we're going to be talking about garden furniture and planting styling trends. So hi everyone, I'm Sarah. Great to see you and hope you enjoy this pre-recorded course. So first of all, we are going to look at garden merchandising trends and having a look at industry trends and consumer trends that we are currently seeing happening in our industry. So I'm just going to move our cameras a little bit so you can see. So the trends which are kind of coming through, and we've been talking about these in the past year as well, but obviously having a look at trends in gardening and products that we can look to highlight to our customers. So obviously last year we saw a particular jump in customers wanting to grow their own produce, as you probably all know. And all of this is a great trend which can obviously be translated to any type of customers that have houses with large gardens, small gardens, patios or terraces. And we have got this interest, obviously sort of post-COVID, that we are all kind of having a real heightened sense of kind of sort of well-being, and we want to encourage to grow our own food in the garden. So we've seen a big increase in the trend in children's gardening to outdoor kitchen areas, and obviously the enjoyment of growing our own fresh produce. Outdoor kitchens. So outdoor kitchens is something I saw particularly a lot at Chelsea last year. And this has been a trend that started to come in last year, but we are seeing more editorial on this for 22-23, where we're kind of seeing people creating their outdoor kitchen spaces, which is kind of sort of in line with us wanting to grow some of our own produce too. And just as an example, we had some figures here from John Lewis saying that they were 18% up last year on their pizza oven sales. So that was a really popular product for John Lewis. So having a look at, products that you feel could work with the outdoor kitchen concept could be sort of really beneficial to your business. We had a very nice lady who came on our HTA VM development course last year, and one of her main projects for the spring is to create a kind of outdoor kitchen area within her planting space. So this is going to be a kind of really big, obviously, trend for her. Wild garden. So we started to see this last year, and it seems like, particularly when we look at articles from apps like Pinterest. So Pinterest has seen a huge surge in the number of people searching for a kind of wild garden on their site, and they have reported a massive increase of 206% on this, which is amazing. And obviously we're want to embrace more of the kind of sort of natural kind of world, rather than having things that are quite neat and tidy and perhaps artificial. The kind of wild planting, kind of wild garden is kind of incorporating that whole use of flowers that are going to attract insects and bees and butterflies, so it kind of feels like this is a real trend which is on the up and is going to continue to increase. Something I've been talking about quite a lot on all of my courses is bringing the inside outside. So all of this is a really big trend, which I'm sure you all saw last year, particularly with the increase of outdoor furniture and the popularity of it. There's a lot of articles and industry heads who are talking a lot about creating the inside outside. So kind of taking your kind of sort of indoor interior outside. So obviously we have seen a huge increase in this area, and there's a quote here that the global outdoor furniture market is forecast to grow by 5% by 23. So selecting furniture which is coordinating with maybe a colorway, you know, that creates that kind of luxurious comfort element outside is really key. You know, and obviously I've put here a kind of key tip is to add colors, you know, to your kind of sort of garden furniture area, which is kind of then tying in with maybe some of the textures and colors and prints that you see in your home, which is going to kind of tie those looks all together. And we'll talk more about that later. So the trends for materials, so particularly rattan on Pinterest at the moment is trending, and that is one of their top 10 search words and terms for 22. So that's quite interesting. And obviously, you know, we all saw such an increase in furniture, particularly rattan or something that's got that kind of sort of natural element sort of last year. So I've put here at the top that the consumer focus upon sustainability, so particularly kind of sort of natural materials are particularly popular. At Chelsea last year, we saw a popularity of lots of recycled kind of furniture made from ocean plastic, which was quite interesting too. You know, so just having a look at the current trend forecasting in regards to kind of key colours, you know, we are naturally being drawn much more to kind of colours and textures which have taken inspiration from nature and the sort of sensory pleasures of being outdoors, and obviously all of that is being extremely reflected through our choice of purchases. So this is the product that was very popular at Chelsea during this year and last year. So this is a brand called Dura Ocean, which is the first chair which is made exclusively, I'll just kind of tab over this so you can see where I'm kind of going, made exclusively from recycled ocean plastic, which includes items like fishing nets and ropes, and this brand was particularly you know, popular at Chelsea, as I say here, and highlighted, and I think it kind of also sort of won a product award too. So all of this page here is talking quite a lot about us really talking about brands, you know, and if you are selling not only garden furniture that has a really interesting brand concept, or the actual sort of story behind the brand is really interesting, you know, it could be any product that you sell in store, it's really worth talking more about that to your customer, you know, so talking about that through maybe POS or signage, to be able to illustrate some of the brand maybe history or kind of where it's made, how the product is made. Perhaps, you know, if we look at the example here from sort of Dura Ocean, is really great, and you know, it creates that opportunity, as I've put here, to be able to tell your brand story to your customer. All of this is also a very good way to advertise a product online too, so we will be covering that on the e-commerce recording course, where I'll be talking about trying to link those sort of product stories to perhaps your Instagram stories or your posts online via your e-commerce site. So that's a kind of key one. So we're now going to look at effective merchandising techniques using furniture, and having a look at how we can bring in all those original principles, everyone, that we looked at on our live classes, and how we can bring those in and actually work with those really effectively in store. So all of this is what we're going to talk through now. So my first slide is about creating inspiration. So rather than just having furniture out on your shop floor, have a think about, is there anything that you can create, whether it's texture that you've already got maybe around with some planting, You could do like a live wall, artificial live wall, for example. We've got a great example here, and all of this was from one of our past HTA members who have just used a wooden floor palette, which has obviously been extremely popular over lockdown, but just painted it. And as we can see here, they've just literally tacked on some artificial palm leaves and artificial tropical plants and kind of bits and pieces here to be able to just, you know, create a little bit of a pop of color. So they more or less had those sections just placed around in between kind of sort of groups of product, but it just really made that area just kind of lift, you know. So having a think about possibly creating a kind of sort of colorful or texture background, even, you know, perhaps bringing in some of your kind of sort of larger house plants, maybe if you've got palms or something in between product, just to break it up a little bit. Some great places to have a look for inspiration is obviously apps like Pinterest, but also I get a lot of my inspiration from Instagram, and there's obviously lots of homes and gardens kind of, you know, Instagram tabs you can have a look at for inspiration for this. So that's my first slide. Also, something we talked about on some of our live classes is obviously trying to sell this package of products. So, you know, we're always thinking about trying to upsell and trying to also create inspiration for our customer. I found from my past work that if you can show the customer, particularly with anything which is home and garden, you know, you can show them the lifestyle dressing in the setting, it seems to help the customer in regards to kind of visualizing how they can then place that or use that in their home. So trying to create these mini dressed areas, I feel from a sort of VM but also a commercial point of view, is really useful in regards to kind of sort of inspiring your customer. And also it's a great opportunity commercially to be able to kind of link sell more products in regards to that product. So for example, if you're sort of selling garden furniture, have a think about other products that you can integrate into that space. It could even be a great opportunity for you to upsell things like fence panels or trellises, fire pits, barbecues, throws, cushions, outdoor rugs, you know, planting. So you can more or less package that whole product up in that space. And we're going to talk about maybe, you know, the kind of areas to place product like this. So, you know, it's you don't need to feel like you've got to create this in kind of every space in your sort of garden furniture department. It could just be just kind of, you know, one main area in your hotspot. So we're going to talk about hotspots in a minute. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then also the popularity of hot tubs. Hot tubs is also one of the terms which is one of the top 10 search terms on Pinterest too. And you probably all saw that kind of coming through in the past sort of 2 years. So brands like Lazy Spa have done particularly well. And, you know, if you are selling those products, we were at Yarnton just before Christmas, you know, they had a kind of sort of hot tub area, but having a consideration of how you can dress maybe the odd piece, and obviously this was one of the sort of Lazy Spa sort of promotional shots yesterday that I had come through on an email, and I just thought all of this was quite interesting, the way that they've kind of updressed it with multiple products, you know. So have a think about obviously the typical hot tub accessories, but also having a kind of sort of consideration of perhaps some of those other products that you could upsell as well and link from your garden centre. Also in regards to you know, the outdoor spaces, you could maybe dress something out, kind of sort of using plants in garden furniture. You know, so it's all about creating all of the these kind of packages of looks to be able to help to create inspiration for your customer as they shop. All of this can also be something you can maybe produce as a graphic. So if you don't have the area to be able to actually dress this as a 3D display, possibly thinking about maybe adding in either a screen. So lots of retailers are doing digital screens now, POS graphics, point of sale, you know, can also be a kind of sort of great way to be able to help the customer understand how to create that look in their own homes. So this is just some products which have been particularly popular, you know, and are kind of rated up there on Pinterest too. But I mean, obviously we are seeing the, you know, the popularity of things like fire pits, barbecues, pizza ovens, as we talked about earlier on with the John Lewis example. You've got some beautiful parasol companies. I've sort of just been looking at the East London Parasol Company, which is obviously all of these two pictures here, you know, so just having a think about all of those other elements that you can bring in and actually kind of sort of make your furniture come alive with obviously all of these pieces. Okay, so this is just an example of obviously bringing in extra product, but also bringing in colour. So this is just a picture of quite a typical example of sort of outdoor furniture in store. You know, and obviously it's quite sort of obvious that it's quite grey. It hasn't really got any break in color or any break of interest in that product. So just by looking at something which we integrated as part of a HTA practical course, where we've obviously sort of put a graphic just behind this set here, which is kind of then bringing in that kind of purple sort of lavender kind of colors, and then integrated some color, pops of color through cushions and accessories. All the accessories that we had dressed on the furniture was available to buy as close by. So on our other courses, we've been talking a lot about see it, like it, buy it. So making sure that if you are dressing even just one space with pops of color, try to make that you've got a selection of that product close by for the customer to shop really easily. And, you know, it just completely lifts that product. So, you know, not everywhere has to be dressed with lots of color, but even just having one key space dressed, I think would really definitely help here. And obviously placement of color again, which we've briefly talked through, but I just wanted to just recap it because this is two examples of some homeware kind of sort of lifestyle dressing. We've got Anthropologie here at the bottom, and this is Heels in Tottenham Court Road. And the two of them, you know, are more or less trying to work with really strong color palettes. So, I mean, I would always personally try and dress a set, whether we're dressing something in store or in a window space, and try to use a maximum of 3 key colors. If you try to integrate more colors, sometimes it can look quite cluttered and maybe a bit overpowering for the customer. So try to use a kind of maximum of 3 key colors. Try to make sure those colours are placed evenly throughout the whole group. So try to have that nice flow of colour all the way through. And all of that subconsciously is supposed to help the eye flow throughout that group with more ease. Also try to think about maybe colours that are seasonal or that are kind of in line with colour trends, and maybe prints which are particularly popular at the moment. So obviously, you know, anything that's quite jungle, lots of palms, lots of animal prints have just become, you know, extremely popular, and that's obviously quite reflected on the Anthropologie shot here. And that's kind of tied in with all the really beautiful kind of sort of palms and house plants as well. So try and use colours and prints which are on trend or seasonal. All of this one here from Heels was created in the spring, so I kind of thought this was quite a good example of how they've used our sort of, you know, typical spring palette of green, yellow and white. And I've also put here about the inspiration, you know, that just being able to kind of take that in as a customer just helps them to understand how they can obviously kind of recreate that at home, because not everyone will understand how you can put all of those products all together as a package. My last point about furniture for any type is that usually we're working with the eye line level, as you learn on our live course, when we thought about the pyramid, and we thought about obviously taking the eye to the top of the pyramid. Sometimes when you're using furniture, particularly whether it's garden furniture, indoor furniture, we're looking at product that is quite low level. So our eye line is kind of hitting about here where my cursor is. So you may need to think about trying to maybe put something at the back at the eye line level to be able to create the main focus on the eye, to be able to help the eye go through the group to the product underneath. So as an example with heels, but also we see that with Anthropologie here. They've used the wallpaper background. They've used the lampshades, which are kind of creating our asymmetrical shape, if you remember our half pyramid, which is taking the eye through the group and then taking it onto the product underneath. But obviously everything coordinates. And then here we've got the height from this really beautiful kind of palm here. And then also the picture on the wall, which is creating the impact at the eye line level, which is then taking the eye through. So you may need to consider having height in the background if you can, if you have that opportunity. So all of this is some examples from Habitat now. So just to show how they dress in a very accessible way. So obviously all of this is a picture taken in store, but we can see that the sort of concept of the orange and the purple is in the window. And then all the accessories are really tidily close by for the customer to be able to sort of shop. So even if you don't have a huge space on your shop floor, even just having a small unit, it kind of could be something like we see at Habitat, where they've got like a small cubed unit. Trying to get those products close to that area is particularly useful, and I think you'll find that if the customer can find them easily, they're more than likely to pick them up. I particularly like here how they've alternated these. So you've kind of got cushions and then vase, then throw, you know, so you haven't got to just do all cushions. You know, if you can integrate different textures of product and sort of, you know, different colors of product all together, which obviously coordinates with how you've dressed it to make that merchandising package look more interesting. We've also got the example here where they've got sort of hanging merchandising. So this is Habitat. In regards that they've obviously got a larger space to be able to put all of their chairs and cushions and kind of throws all together. All of this one here has been color blocked. So if you are working with furniture where it's colored, maybe you might want to think about creating these strong blocks of color. That can also work particularly well. So creating a focal point space, everyone. So this is obviously in line with the hotspot sort of elements we were talking about on some of our live lessons. So, you know, I would really recommend in regards to your garden furniture, maybe select an area towards the front of the apartment. It could be the first corner that your kind of customer kind of gets to, but it's always really nice to be able to create a kind of hotspot space, and it will just elevate and just highlight, you know, one set of furniture. Some other brands who I work with will also integrate maybe more of a hotspot towards their entrance. So all of this is actually a company in Malta that I worked with online last year. And all of this is obviously their example that they did for their practical. But I just thought it's quite interesting just to show you this, because this is one of their hotspots as you came through their entrance. So this was an entrance hotspot area which was dressed to garden furniture. And I just asked them just to integrate a few more products into that group, as we can see here. So, you know, it could be a platformed area or a highlighted area at the front as customers come in, or it could just be a hotspot area, which is the first area typically that you come to as you come onto the actual sort of department space. Quite like all of this one from IKEA as well, because it kind of looks so different to everywhere else, and I quite like how they've cladded the metal arms with the beechwood here, so I just thought that was quite a nice idea. You know, if you can't create a platform, maybe creating a coloured sort of like a texture on the floor. All of this one was created with AstroTurf, but it could be that you do it with floor vinyl. You know, perhaps if you want to create texture. This is one from one of the HTA practical courses where they created a kind of hotspot taking you into their spring planting, which has been created on a palette and then just edged round. You know, so there's lots of concepts that you know, you can look at. The IKEA one is particularly good as well because it has a top to it. If you want to sell any outdoor lighting or you want to create like ambience at the top, you know, all of that is quite a good idea to create like a sort of metal frame or structure or wooden where you can hang things from the top as well. So that could also work particularly well. So obviously, if we look at this picture again, you know, perhaps maybe creating something just where I'm kind of sort of circling here on this corner could be a great kind of entrance to this area here, and just break it up a little bit. So creating height and kind of impact at the front and elevating that product up could actually, you know, create a bit more of, as said here, an injection of colour and trend and texture, but it will also help to really draw our customers' eye through into that area and encourage them to come and shop. So this is just again some examples from other HTA members where they've created a little hotspot at the front here, sort of using a sort of tropical theme. And then obviously these two are habitat again, but I really like how they've sort of used the bamboo at the back and the kind of cane as well to be able to create a sort of kind of background, you know. So it could even be here where they've put the trellis up and we can see this kind of low level trellis, maybe making that slightly higher so that all of that creates the height, and that could be dressed, or you could inject some color into that, and then possibly, as we've sort of just talked about from some of our other pictures, injecting some color into this area here too. The area space, actually, I'm just going to go back to this one. If you're creating a hotspot area, as we've talked about on some of our other classes, I would recommend that you look to change that every 2 to 4 weeks. So it could just be changing the colors over. It doesn't need to be that you know, change all the product over, but it could just be that you change the color, you change some of the accessories, just so it kind of creates the illusion for your customer that you've got this newness coming through constantly. Also, I wanted to pick out about your entrances. So some of you that come onto our courses have got an entranceway dressing. So this is similar to, obviously this is the same client in Malta who had a kind of entranceway platform. So all of their entrances coming through here, and the platform area is on the left hand side. So I asked them to use that space as a bit of a kind of inspirational, say, shop window that is kind of reflective of something that they want to promote in store. So obviously all of this was installed last summer, so their key promotion was about outdoor and furniture and patios and creating that kind of terraced effect. So obviously all of this area was actually dressed with those products, but you know, it could change every 4 weeks. It could change so it's seasonal. It can be a great area for Christmas when we start to, you know, plan Christmas as well. So if you've got you know, more of a platformed area as you come into your entrance, you know, try and treat that as the display as well. And it could be that you're using maybe some graphics or ticketing or signage, POS, to be able to talk about things like garden furniture or summer product, you know, try to make sure that all of those graphics or sort of same ticketing is also then replicated into the area in your garden furniture. So for example, here, so those sort of same messages are becoming consistent all the way through. We had a couple of HTA members that came on our courses last year who were also making sure after these areas were dressed that they were photographing them, sharing them on Instagram, and then obviously tagging in products. So that could be also if you want to kind of sort of engage with the online too, you know, trying to share posts which kind of illustrate sort of your displays on sort of Facebook, Instagram, e-commerce also kind of works particularly well. And I've obviously put that at the bottom. All of this is another area which is at the entrance to an outdoor plant area which was created and changed every 4 weeks. All of this particular one is trying to advertise the herb area. So, you know, each time all of this is swapped, the actual colours of the crates changes in regards to the product. So it's reflective of the product. So even if you haven't got a kind of entrance platform, you know, is there any other areas in store that can be created as kind of sort of more of a seasonal display? That's also worth considering. Okay, I'm going to pause there. So we're now going to talk about effective merchandising techniques, and we're going to particularly look at planting now. So let's have a look at this. So some key points on the slides here is to consider your customer's profile and obviously sort of thinking about how we can maybe integrate some planting with obviously garden furniture and some of the homewares in store to be able to create this kind of link selling concept and package. Also considering how we can shop those products and trying to integrate, obviously, you know, other products that can coordinate, but even products like kind of chems and ferts. And obviously we see here with some of these great examples from the RHS in regards to, obviously they've got their pots and their sort of accessories to the house plants at the top underneath. And I kind of love this caption, the grow your indoor jungle, which works particularly well. You know, so having the kind of coordinating products close by always works particularly well. Also, as we've looked at with the furniture images, having coordinating products integrated into plants. So here we've got some great examples of their hotspot table. This is at the RHS shop in Wisley, which is a great one to have a look at if you're close by. They had lots of the kind of key VM techniques that we will always talk about on the courses integrated into the store. So here we've got planting, which has been integrated in amongst 3D products, home accessory products, but you know, it kind of works really nicely all together as a package, but it also helps to integrate a different kind of texture into the experience for the customers. Just going to pick out a few techniques here just to highlight them. So we can see here some great examples of the repetition and blocks of 3. Also alternating colours, alternating textures can work particularly well as well as, so that's really good. We've got some pyramid concepts happening on their tables. So we were talking about on other courses about treating your table as a pyramid, so always think about that. And I mean, also with the house plant one, I have cut this image slightly, but you can kind of see how it goes up slightly at the top. So often just by maybe using things like crates or blocks or you know, anything else that you kind of sort of may have in store, could be, you know, some nice terracotta plant pots to be able to create you some height, but you know, try and think about elevating that height up so you've got the kind of pyramid concept in the middle. Also making sure you've got all the product is very accessible. So thinking 360 on those table areas. Educating through the merchandising, particularly with planting. I think all of this has been a particularly popular area over the past few years. And we did some work with Evergreen. But having a think about what are the products that you could obviously put together as a package, but also helping the customer to understand how they can tend and care for those plants is particularly key. And I mean, I know I find that really helpful if I'm particularly trying to select, house plants and knowing how to care for them. So integrating, elements, whether it's chems and ferts or kind of water sprays or the kind of sort of correct compost, for those areas can be particularly helpful. So this is just some picture examples of some things that we've done on some of our past HTA courses. I think, also sort of planting, so sort of dressing and placing planting types or plant types together, which work together in the same soil, for example, which will grow well together, is also quite illustrating, and it helps to educate that to the customer. And this is obviously quite a good example of that there. Just some pictures just to talk through, so we've obviously been talking about creating concepts and having to think about trends when we're dressing garden furniture. Also, we can maybe take that outdoors too. So where we're looking at things like pots and planting and textures, gravels, and sort of various different other accessories. I really like how we've got the sort of two examples here, which is creating completely different themes on each side. We've obviously got the concentration of this kind of Mediterranean kind of terracotta sort of display, and then on the next picture we've got quite a kind of sort of Asian Oriental kind of feel to the garden here, so anything like that can really help to be able to create those ideas and those concepts in the mind of the customer. So if you are working with maybe aisles, maybe taking the aisle end, which we can see here, and it's just been kind of cordoned off with this area of trellis, which kind of then creates that kind of small hotspot area at the end. But obviously it really helps to tie the customer in and kind of, get them to understand how they can recreate that in their garden. And then just some other ones which are showing you with color. So even if you just want to integrate a bit of color, pops of color, as we're obviously coming through into spring and summer, so trying to use whether it's trellis or crates, as we saw earlier on, and having these kind of color aisles, if you like, which, can obviously help the customer to understand the kind of concept. I think it's also kind of sort of quite good if you've got just a colorway in your head that you want to try and recreate sort of in the garden. I know from obviously my own shopping and obviously from talking to other members on the courses that not all customers, not all younger customers will actually have the correct names of the plants or actually kind of sort of know the Greek names. So having them more in kind of sort of color coordinated order is particularly helpful for some of our younger customers. So this is quite a good example of that here. Creating height. So creating height is obviously always important. And obviously we were talking about all of this on some of our other classes in regards to elevation of height and creating the eye line impact at the back. So, you know, even with planting, try to obviously kind of, sort of consider, as we said earlier on, trying to think about creating these pyramid levels of height. I particularly like how they have these frames over these table areas. This one here is from Pinterest, but I particularly like this, and I've done a lot of this work for my clients in the past couple of years where we've kind of used wooden arches over tables, you know, so anything where you're creating a little bit of a kind of header to the table, or you're creating that kind of sort of theatre over all of that area, and creating height can immediately help to draw the eye over, even if you've you know, just literally integrating it into one area space. So all of this particular table area could be obviously your hotspot in your houseplant area, for example. So our next part is effective layout techniques. So this is where we're going to be go back and look at some of the techniques that we covered on some of our other courses, and think about how we can integrate some customer flow techniques into our area spaces, particularly if we're working with lots of garden furniture. So here we go, everyone, let's have a look at this. So key points is obviously us considering the push and pull products. So are those push and pull products in the correct locations? So it may be, for example, that you have all your garden furniture towards the front, and maybe product like your kind of barbecues, outdoor lighting that you feel everyone's going to come in for anyway, it's going to be kind of sort of more positioned to the back. So you kind of need to ask yourself those questions. So have a consideration of your push and pull product, and are they placed in the correct positions? Also, I think some key points which I seem to always come across from you know, more of a customer's point of view, is the clear walkways aren't there. So trying to create, and we talked about this on the live lessons, in regards to us having a kind of sort of clear walkway from more or less the front of the department or store, and having a good flow through the area. So particularly when I worked for Harrods, our garden furniture department was on the second floor, which is usually our Christmas hall, but it's quite a long, slim room. And we had to make sure, because it was really hard to be able to try and drive the customer flow from that front area at the front, but to be able to encourage them to go all the way through to the back. So just by integrating a clear walkway through the whole department seemed to really help to integrate that. A couple of other techniques could be that you maybe use things like floor graphics, or you create maybe a pathway of AstroTurf, you know, as a sort of carpet to be able to run all the way through. You could even think about maybe hanging elements over the kind of walkway. So I think on a picture that we saw in our live class from Harrods, we were seeing they were hanging garlands through the walkway at the top. So anything that you feel creates just a more of that flow throughout that department can be, you know, so helpful, particularly helpful. Also kind of considering the sort of journey of the customer. So how are they going to approach the area? So it could be that the customer isn't going to approach the area from sort of, you know, sort of straight on. They're going to approach it at the side. So you might need to adapt the walkway to be able to encompass that. And I've also put here, you know, to consider, and obviously we are going to be talking about this on our live lessons, but consider, is there a kind of area of opportunity within your plant or your garden furniture space that you'd like to improve? So is there an area that you feel that nobody is shopping? A really good way to have a look at this is to carry out a customer mapping exercise. So that's our customer flow exercise that we looked at in the class. And the customer flow exercise can really kind of unearth all of these kind of opportunities that you may have happening in store. So obviously have a look at that. And obviously, if you do have any questions on this, because this is quite a sort of practical area, you know, I'm happy to obviously answer any of your questions. You can email me or contact me via the IT Network app too. Okay, so let's just have a look at some other techniques that I feel has particularly worked well. So if we look at this one here, it's got a great walkway all the way through to the back. And I have to say, all of that is good. However, there isn't anything really drawing me to the back to be able to keep my eye kind of interested. So first of all, the first point is about maybe thinking about creating a high wall at the back. So this could be more of a sort of feature wall. So I've used the example from Habitat here just to illustrate all of this point to you. So they've used obviously a kind of coloured painted back wall, and that kind of helps to really push the eye and draw the eye through that space. So having something, so it could be a kind of live wall, could be a planting wall, you know, whatever you want to do. It could be, if you've got trellis, you could paint the trellis, but it's all about having the impact on the back wall. If you have that, it seems to psychologically help the eye to flow through the group with obviously much more ease. So it seems to help to draw the eye through. Also, just remember from our other classes, we were talking about that as your customer comes in store, you know, if they're looking at something straight on, like a hotspot, for example, we're always looking at it that you're looking at your kind of natural eye line level. When you're looking across the shop floor space, particularly at the back here, so if you were to wait here as a customer and to kind of sort of look through, our eye would more or less be taken up more. So you can actually use and integrate much more height into that area. Also, all of that could also make for an extra dressed area. So we've been talking about creating a sort of hotspot area, maybe a dressed sort of display at the front, for example. And then also, if you wanted to and you had the space at the back, it's also quite if you know, sort of had the space and you wanted to create another dressed group of furniture, for example, all of that is particularly good on there. And obviously we can kind of see that actually being integrated here at Habitat too. The second point about this slide is to talk about perhaps integrating the alternating principle here. So I feel sometimes some furniture areas in store can be particularly quite flat. I think if you wanted to create just a little bit of a kind of alternating break in between products, because here, you know, as we look at this picture, it just feels like the product is just blending all together. If we create alternating height throughout this space, so that could be that you have maybe alternating platforms. So you had all of this piece on a platform, then you had the other piece on a platform, then you had the other product on the flat floor, then you had the other product at the end on a platform. You've got this kind of alternating height going on. So all of that would work particularly well. So you could alternate through height. You can also alternate through color and texture too. So some brands will maybe create, I don't know, AstroTurf on the floor, or AstroTurf on the platform areas, and then the actual floor area is like a stone floor, for example. So, you know, you've got the mixture of the AstroTurf and the slate, AstroTurf and slate, you know, so there is quite a few techniques to be able to kind of be able to bring that kind of alternating element into this, which will just break it up and just create a much more interesting space for the customer. I think also at the back here, there's some good pictures which I've come across before where they're actually alternating the kind of color here. So it could just be that you have maybe the artificial kind of plastic AstroTurf, which comes in like squares. And obviously have a look at some of the prop companies that we talked about for those products, particularly the German company, the Declo Warner company has AstroTurf, which can kind of sort of put together in squares, but it's quite textured. All of this could work particularly well on the back wall because you'd have AstroTurf strip, if you like, trellis, AstroTurf, trellis, AstroTurf. So it kind of immediately creates that impact on the sidewall as well. So that's sort of just an example, but you can get picture graphics, you can get all different types, you know, it could just be a plain color, as we see here in Habitat, that works particularly well. And then one of our final slides for all of this pre-recorded course is to also think about the actual space between furniture. So I've put here, allow space between furniture sets for your customer to actually, you know, be able to try those pieces out. So we used to have a lot of this issue, particularly when I was working for M&S, where we'd have so much product out and the customer couldn't actually try out any of the pieces. And it's interesting, if you kind of allow space in between each product, it kind of highlights that product more so to the customer, and it also makes that product perhaps look slightly more important. It makes it look a little bit more premium, but it also encourages the customers to kind of come and sit and try those products out. So I've put here as an example, all chairs from tables, for example, should be able to be pulled out and tried. Most of the time, everything is so tightly packed in that it is really hard to even move any chairs out. So if you can, and you kind of have the opportunity just to be able to create a little bit more space around product, I feel from obviously working with furniture in the past, it seems to really help customers to feel more comfortable with engaging in the product. And I've put here that, you know, trying to create clear walkways around the product too will help to obviously ensure, as we kind of all know, and you know, we've all been talking about, kind of really great customer flow, which will help to ensure a good shopping experience for your customer. So hope you have enjoyed that course. If anyone has any questions on this or any of the content, I'm really happy to answer your questions. You can email me at the email address that you already have, or you can contact me via the Mighty Networks app. Hope you've enjoyed. Thank you, everyone.